Yoenis Tellez versus Joseph Jackson. 10 rounds in the 154-pound division. Two undefeated fighters. Let's get into it. Let's start with Tellez. 7 wins, no losses. 6 wins by way of knockout. Tellez is an up-and-coming prospect with a lot of upside to me. He fights with a level of poise and confidence, even though he doesn't have a whole lot of professional fights. And one thing about Tellez, man, is he knows how to close out the show when his opponents are hurt. The first fight that I saw of him was when he fought Dario Meneses on the undercard of David Morrell Jr. and Yerbasa Newley. And the fight was stopped due to a head clash, but you could see the raw potential there. Right? He was going to the body with power and precision. He was cutting off the ring well, and he was doing some just overall good work, right? I wanted to see how that fight was going to play out going into the second half of the fight. It was a very short, I think it was like 6 or 8 rounds, right? And they got to 3 rounds and the fight was stopped. Tellez got the win, but you could definitely see that he was raw, but you could see he had some really good things to work with there. A few fights later, when he would go on to fight Sergio Garcia, a veteran fighter who's got way more experience than Tellez. And Sergio Garcia only lost to Tony Harrison and Sebastian Fundora. And he took those guys to the distance. So this was going to be a great test and a great matchup, at least so it was supposed to be on paper, until they got into the ring. And Tellez just really separated himself from the jump. That potential that I was talking about, you could see that it was starting to develop and starting to form into the fighter that we're seeing right in front of our eyes, man. He sat Garcia down with the right hand that made him squat down like he was on this weight rack. But Garcia squatted up, but the thing is, when Garcia squatted up, he got caught with another shot that put him right back down on the canvas, man. And Tellez was able to close out the show in 3 rounds. That was a very dominant performance against a solid, experienced fighter who we didn't think it was going to be that easy for him to dominate that fight. Now, in his most recent fight, he was up against another tough opponent in Livan Navarro. I thought it was a competitive fight through and through. Navarro gave Tellez some good works, man. But again, Tellez, man, the sharpness, the quickness, the variation in his punches, starting to separate himself. And we know how that fight ended with a devastating left hand shot that the second that it landed, man, Navarro was out cold. Like, he was out cold. That fight was over with. As soon as that shot landed, Navarro walked right into it, and that's not a shot that you want to walk into. Tellez is confident, strong offensively. He can do everything you would want a fighter to do, and he's got the power to help bail him out if he is in trouble. Defensively, he will get better. His angle changes will improve. His head movement will improve. He will continue to get better as a defensive fighter as he gets more fights and more opportunities to grow inside of the ring, man. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he does on the night. I think it's going to be a good fight. Let's talk about his opponent, Joseph Jackson. 19 wins, no losses, 15 wins by way of knockout. He fought once last year. He fought once in 2022 and once the year before that in 2021 and one fight in 2022. So in the recent years, he hasn't been the most active fighter. Usually it's just one fight a year and he keeps it pushing. But even at 35 years old, like he is now, he's still knocking cats out. He won his last 3 fights by way of knockout. He stopped Terrence Williams in the first round, stopped Anthony Lank in the 3rd round, and most recently, his most recent opponent, Dedrick Bell, in the 5th round. Now, his last 3 opponents have a combined record of 54 wins, 55 losses, and 3 draws. So not the worst, but not the greatest level of competition that he's fought in the recent years. But he still got the job done and still did what he needed to do and what he was supposed to do, and that's to come out on top. Now, in 2020, he fought Derek Coleman Jr., who is around the same age as Tellez, similar height, similar size, similar stature. And I thought Jackson fought a pretty good fight, man. I thought he looked pretty good. You know, both men were in there in the early stages of the fight, throwing everything, throwing heavy punches, trying to get that one-shot knockout and be over with it. So when they would connect, it looked great. When they would miss, it didn't look too good. And if they were focusing on counter-punching, they might have been able to clip each other. But, man, not a whole lot of jabs from Jackson in that fight. Even though he does have a good jab, there were some rounds where Coleman just barely missed with that right hand that almost connected, but it barely missed. But Jackson does go to the body well, man, and he's a good combination puncher. His combination work is solid. He was on the move against Coleman, so he wasn't sitting stagnant, and he made good adjustments, slowing down the pace of the fight in the second half of the fight, an 8-round fight. At the beginning of the fight, the pace was quick. It was punches after punches after punches, and you know you can't hold that every single round. You had to slow it down, and that is what Jackson did. Coleman started to chase Jackson and not cut off the ring against Jackson. He walked himself into some shots that if he was less emotional about and more tactical about, he would have been able to defend himself a little bit better. But the last 2 rounds of that fight, the 7th and the 8th round, man, Jackson started to let his hands go a little bit. Coleman looked a little bit more tired, and that's when Jackson was able to land more consistent shots, more clean shots, and he was able to take those rounds and come away with the win. He hurt Coleman with an uppercut while Coleman was against the ropes in that 7th round, but all in all, he outworked Coleman in the last 2 rounds of the fight and landed the cleaner shots and got himself the decision victory. So even at 35 years old right now, Jackson is still fighting at a high level. He's still got good pop in his shots. So we'll see if he can keep up with the pace of the younger fighter, or if he can use his experience to outthink and to maybe be the more physical fighter against the younger guy. So who wins? I like this matchup because I think it's going to be a good test for Tellez and Jackson, right? Jackson looks to be in great shape, great form. He's a guy that can punch. Tellez does a good job of pushing the pace, and he fights off the front foot well, and he fights off the back foot well. And Tellez counters pretty well as well, too. Jackson sometimes got himself in trouble when Coleman was pushing the pace and he was on the back foot, moving laterally and keeping his hands down. But Jackson was quick enough and smart enough to get out of the way. Coleman didn't do a great job of cutting off of the ring. And I think Tellez will do a better job of that and walk him into a shot, and that could put Jackson in trouble. Jackson hasn't fought a 10-round fight since 2019, and this is a 10-round fight. And it makes me wonder why that is. You know, he's 35 years old, not a whole lot of 10-round fight. Like, why is that? Is there something going on with his conditioning? It just makes me question what his conditioning is like. Whereas Tellez, you know, in his last 2 fights, they've been 10-round fights. I kind of hope this fight goes the distance. I think Tellez could use the rounds, in my opinion, but I don't think it's going to go the distance. I'm leaning towards Tellez winning this fight by stoppage. What are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you have winning this one? Let me know in the comment section below. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a couple ways that you can do so. You can like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like support by way of donation, you can find options in the description below. Also, my Cash App handle will be on screen as well. Any amount goes towards the growth of this channel. It'll be greatly, greatly appreciated. Shout out to everybody that continues to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, man. I appreciate each of you. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video this time, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.